On this episode of Southall Computing, we're going to rebuild our Hackintosh from 2 years ago, and we're only going to replace the CPU and GPU, and that's coming up next. What's going on YouTube? Dan from Southall Computing, and today we're going to rebuild the Hackintosh that we did about 2 years ago that was running High Sierra. Our mission for today is to only update the CPU and GPU in our system. We're going to maintain the same heatsink, the same motherboard, same RAM, and same hard drives. So first up on our rebuild here, we went for the i9 9900K and as well as the AMD Radeon 5700. As we already know, we have to go with an AMD graphics card. We chose the Radeon 5700 here because A, it is natively supported in later versions of Catalina, and NVIDIA is no longer supported on the Macintosh platform. And to our right, we have our previous motherboard here. It's a Z370 series from Gigabit, and as I stated before, we're just going to swap these components in and get this going. Now, before we can install our new processor here, we need to update the BIOS on this motherboard. So let's go ahead and do that and see what happens. So without boring you guys too much, I just was out of sheer curiosity. I have already installed the processor and the Radeon graphics card. This is the previous Hackintosh build's hard drive running High Sierra. And one of the weird things I'm noticing right now is it doesn't actually get to the desktop. And you know what? I really don't care because this is just going to get redone anyway, but I was just out of sheer curiosity to see what happens. But essentially this is the third boot now where the progress bar just continues to slowly progress across the screen and nothing ever happens. So, oh well, I just wanted to see what would happen, but we're going to pull this drive, get a new one in, get the Unibeast USB macOS installer all squared away as well. So let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, so first up, we're going to go to the App Store on the dock there, and we are going to download the latest version of Catalina. And at the time of filming, that would be version 10.15.3. And as always, it's free. We want to download it because we're going to be using the Tuneup x86.com Unibeast method of making a bootable USB stick. So we're going to basically speed this up and do that really quick. Okay, and once we know that the download is complete, you'll be greeted by this macOS Install Catalina window here. You simply want to go to the upper left-hand corner where it says Install macOS Catalina and say Quit the Installer. Okay, so head over to your favorite web browser and go to tonymac.x86.com. Click on the download section at the top of the screen there and select Tuneup x86 Tools. And we're looking for Unibeast version 10.00 Catalina. Once we're here in the upper right hand corner, there'll be a little button once you've created an account that will say download. Okay, so the final thing that we need from tonymac.com here is go back to downloads, Tuneup x86 Tools. And on the left-hand side here, we're looking for community software. And within community software, we're going to get the Clover configurator. Okay, so we have a USB thumb drive that we're going to format shortly, and we're going to do that by going into the spotlight in the upper right-hand corner and searching for disk utility. And here, what I like to do is change the view if you're not sure which drive you're looking for, but we know the name is DOS. We're going to hit erase, and we want to make sure we're using macOS Extended Journal when we format this drive. So we're going to do that real quick. And once that's done, we're going to click on OK, or done, I should say. Quit this app, and then open up the Unibeast application that we just grabbed from Tuneup. And you'll find that when you try to open the application, it wants to tell you that it's unable to, but the quick trick is right-clicking and then selecting open, and you'll notice you're presented with an open option. This is the quickest way to circumvent that little security dialog box. Then we click on continue, continue, continue yet again, and one more time, hit agree, and select our USB thumb drive that we just formatted with macOS Extended and say continue. And we select the Catalina of the OS. For this Mac, it's the UEFI boot mode. And we don't need any of these for legacy graphics cards from either ATI or NVIDIA. And this is just a recap saying we're installing on DOS and Catalina in UEFI mode. And obviously just put your credentials to start the installation or creation of our USB bootable thumb drive. Okay, so we turned on the machine, we installed or inserted the Unibeast USB bootable drive, and we're hitting F12 on the keyboard here to get to our boot menu. This is particular to gigabyte motherboards. It might be the same for yours, but it might be different. As you can see here, we have different hard drives installed into the machine, but I know for a fact the USB stick is this guy right down here, and you want the UEFI partition method to be booted off of it. So let's hit enter and see if Unibeast works. Okay, so what we're looking at is the Boot Clover bootloader. So I need to find the USB drive on this menu listing all the drives. Now this would obviously be a heck of a lot less confusing if I didn't have all these other hard drives plugged in, but I know what I'm looking for. So in this example here, I'm looking for that external icon where it says boot macOS install from install macOS Catalina. I guess the drive that I'm going to install it on must have had an older version of macOS on it, interesting enough. But this guy right here is what we're looking for, so let's hit enter. And here we go again. So now we have the same issue that we had with High Sierra after we did our BIOS update with the new processor. So, all right, back to the drawing board. We at least know this USB stick is bootable, but something else is going on. So let's do a little research and figure out what's the issue. Okay, so we're back, and now we need to find out why it's hanging up on the Apple boot logo there. So let's go down to here to where we find options. And under boot arguments, we want to hit enter and just type in -v, hit enter, scroll down to return and hit enter, and go back to Mr. External macOS install and hit enter. This is basically going to put us in verbose mode, and we're going to be able to see everything that's going on in the background to figure out what the heck is crashing and not allowing us to fully boot into the installer. Oh, and there we are. Right there, I don't know if you could see it, it's complaining about the ACPI error has failed. So that's where we're getting hung up on. So we're going to do a little lookup real quick and see if we find a fix. Okay, so we found the solution to our problem. We're going to open up the downloads folder here and double click on that Clover configurator that we downloaded earlier. It's very important to drag it out of the downloads folder onto your desktop, or else you won't be able to update it properly. So once we get it here, we're going to go to the top and check for a new revision, which we're going to install now. And now that we have the new version of Clover configurator installed, we're going to click on the Mount EFI. We're going to say OK to allow Clover configurator to access disk partitions. We're looking for our USB stick description, and that's why we're going to click on Mount Partition, enter our password, and basically now we should be able to see it on the desktop here. So there it is. It is the EFI partition from the USB installer. So if we go back into Clover configurator, we're going to go to the file menu on the top. We're going to go to open, and we're going to select that EFI partition that we just mounted. Once in here, we're going to go to EFI again, Clover, and configlist.plist and say open. So now this is the actual settings that we could adjust on the USB EFI partition. So here, basically, I'm just showing how to fix this issue on my machine. It is very particular to Gigabyte motherboards with the Z370 chipset. So basically, again, this happened when we updated the BIOS to support the latest i9 9900K processor. It caused this condition where it wouldn't boot, and applying this patch worked. Okay, so let's see if our modification to Clover actually works here, and let's give it a go a second time. Whoa. Okay, back to the drawing board. I guess we got further. Let's find out what's going on now. Okay, so we're back at it again. We're going to open up Clover Configurator. We're going to go back to mount the EFI utility here. We're going to find the EFI partition on our USB installer, click mount, put in our credentials, and we're going to go up to the file menu and open recent because it's the only configuration file that we've opened previously on this machine. So as you can see here, now we're moving to the boot section on the left hand side, and we're going to right click on an empty spot of this window here. So once we are here, we're going to scroll down to whatever green, and we're going to select this argument, AGDP, M as in Mary, OD equals PIKERA, whatever that means. So apparently this is happening because of our new AMD Radeon graphics card. So be sure to save this option as always. Quit Clover Configurator, and we're going to try it again. And we're back. So we've applied the Radeon fix. Supposedly, we're pretty much guessing that's what the cause is right now. And let's give it a go. We're going to select the USB installer once again and hit enter. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. So now we got to the, let's see if we could clear that up a little bit. That looks better. Okay, hallelujah. We finally got to the installation. I never thought that was going to be the hard part for this, but then again, the first time I did this Hackintosh build, I didn't have a fraction of these errors or issues. So, all right, it's pretty much a standard install at this point. I'm going to go over to disk utility here and hopefully locate the correct hard drive and not erase something important. So I'm going to use a little trick here. If I go to View, Show All Devices, I'll be able to identify it by name brand. So OCZ is the hard drive that I need to format. I'm going to go to Erase and give it a name. Call it Macintosh HD, even though it's all lowercase, and say erase. Again, it's not recommended doing this with a whole bunch of hard drives on there, and luckily I'm able to identify the hard drive I'm looking for by its name brand for OCZ. Drive is formatted. We're going to quit out of disk utility and say install macOS and see what happens. And it's this guy. All right, here we go. Should be a standard installation. Okay, so this is very important to, on the reboot, make sure you're still hitting F12. Well, in this example, it automatically went straight into it, but what we're doing here is we're going to make sure that BootClover is smart enough to know where to boot into. Oh, look at that. It's automatically selected Macintosh HD to boot directly into. Looks like we got another reboot. I'm just going to make sure that it boots up to the USB stick once again. Oh, never mind. Apparently it's just doing it automatically. This time it's not automatically booting into the hard drive, so we're going to scroll over and we want this one, the HFS boot macOS install from Macintosh HD. Okay, so it looks like we have a new option available now. So we have, oh, it automatically booted into the hard drive partition. Interesting. Okay, so this looks like a standard setup for macOS. So we're going to do that real quick. We're not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to set it up and see what kind of fun we're going to run into. Well, the good news is we are booted into macOS. I can't believe this actually worked, to be honest. So right away, again, this is why I chose the 9900K, the i9 from Intel, because it's automatically detected, as well as the graphics card drivers. That's automatically detected. Basically, it's just two less things I have to worry about configuring for the end of this installation. And a nice thing too is whatever that USB bootloader is using, it also was able to install Ethernet drivers that are compatible to what this motherboard has. So in a nutshell right now, the only other thing that I need to worry about is sound drivers. Now, as you can see, only USB sound is selected here, and that's something that we'll have to change because we want to use the built-in sound card. And as a matter of fact, I should probably stop recording through this phone and then do it on the machine itself while I apply these fixes. Okay, on to the next step here. I guess we'll try to install the Clover boot. So this way we don't need the USB stick to boot the machine up anymore and get it going from there. Okay, at the time of making this video, there was still no multi-beast version that we could install to help make this process so much better for Catalina. So after many hours, we had to get extremely creative. This is not recommended. It worked for me. So at this point, we are going to find the latest version of Clover boot. And we found our link here and download the latest version of Clover boot. And immediately gives you a link that you have to go to download it. We're going to launch the installer. Of course, it's going to give us the security warning. So we're going to right click again and select open. And then on the new dialog box here, we're going to say open once again. Now that we successfully installed Clover boot, we still need Clover configurator. Now please remember to always move the Clover configurator onto the desktop there so you can run the updates post install. Once with Clover configurator completely updated, we're going to go down to mount EFI again, and we're going to mount both the EFI partition for our hard drive as well as the EFI partition for our USB thumb drive. Now this part is the only way I got my machine to boot on its own. So basically what we're going to do is the EFI partition on the hard drive and the EFI partition on the USB stick. We're just going to erase whatever's on the hard drive and copy whatever we got on the USB thumb drive because we know it works. Again, not exactly recommended, but hey, it works. Okay, so next on our list is to get the audio card drivers for this sound card, and basically on the screen it's just showing you the rundown, but I needed two kext kernels to get it running. I'm just not going to bore you with the details. If you're interested, it is the Realtek ALC1220. We needed two files to get it up and running. We're basically downloading them. We'll include them in the description below if you're interested on how to fix this and where to put them on the Hackintosh HD EFI partition on where to place them. So we'll just speed up the video here. Now that the EFI partition is loaded, we're going to EFI, we're going to the Clover folder. Next up, we're going to the kext folders, others, and that's where we're going to put both of these extensions in. Okay, so we're rebooted, so let's check on the sound card. If we open System Preferences, go to the Sound Control panel, and voila, our internal sound card is actually working. So we're gonna select digital audio out because that's what we have with our surround sound speakers. And now let's do the final config, because the last issue that we were having with this machine is it wouldn't shut down. So now it's time to use Clover Configurator to fix that issue. So first up, let's mount the EFI partition of the hard drive. Next up, we're going to open the configuration file for it, so let's make sure we got it. We're going to scroll down to the EFI partition, Clover, and config.plist. Now we're going to move over to the boot section, and we're going to right click on an open section here, and the one that we are looking for is slide equals 0. This will fix any shutdown issues that, or I should say my shutdown issues on this particular Hackintosh. Well, there you have it. After many days of testing and testing and testing some more, we got this Hackintosh fully operational with its graphics card, GPU, motherboard, booting. What else? I mean, it was on and on as you saw all the things I had to do to get the silly thing working. It's kind of surprising though. Again, prior to the BIOS update, this was to date one of my easiest Hackintosh builds when I did the High Sierra build. The moment that new BIOS was in play, then everything went downhill. And there we have it. So, as always, if you like what you see here, please give this video a big old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, join our forums. It would be greatly appreciated. This is Dan from Southall Computing. As always, until the next time.